This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
Happy Halloween to all you ghouls and goblins out there, all you roadies celebrating. Happy Halloween and welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Roadshow with your boys here. You can call me Truck, and I'm joined as always by the infamous Shane O'Mac. And today we are talking red light, green light for week 9 in the NFL. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of news in the cycle, a lot of good games this week. We're going to talk about the matchups we like and we don't like. Who do we put on the red light and green light list for week 9? But Shane, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Let me just get this out of the way. A little PSA for everybody on Halloween night. If you have teenagers come to your house trick-or-treating, just give them candy. There's a lot worse things they could be out doing. Don't have some stupid thing like you're too old to trick-or-treat. Just let them do their thing. Give them candy. It's not a big deal.
I can't remember when I stopped trick-or-treating. I'm not sure when that was. Maybe I was 14 or something, but I don't get a lot of trick-or-treaters by my house, unfortunately. I'll put out a bowl of candy, but not too many come by old Truck's house over here. So do you get a lot of trick-or-treaters?
Yeah, we get a pretty good amount, so I'm always giving it to the mother.
Is Jax O'Mac trick-or-treating this year?
No, he's done. He's done. So.
And how old is he? I just as a frame of reference.
14, so he'll be
okay. All right. Yeah. So yeah, right. But did he go last year?
Last year was his last year. We kind of
all right. I'm on.
Yeah, he kind of said once he got to high school, that would be the end of it. So
yeah, much better things to do on Halloween, like party instead of go trick or treating. So watch out for him partying on Halloween. That's all I gotta say. All right, but let's talk about some stuff going on in the NFL. We got Deontay Johnson has been moved from the Panthers to the Ravens. What's your initial reaction from that as far as Deontay Johnson goes?
It's kind of I was hoping like he'd go to Tampa Bay, maybe Washington, but this isn't a horrible spot. You at least get paired up with a great quarterback. I don't think the way I put it is you're not going to see the peak games he had in Carolina probably with all the other weapons, but you probably get a safe floor.
Yeah, I think this is bad news for Rashad Bateman, who's been having really good games lately. But to me, it's the consistency that Deontay brought with the Carolina Panthers is just not going to be there. I mean, we've seen Baltimore's pass catchers be inconsistent pretty much all year. Zay Flowers has been a little bit more consistent as of late, but overall, I just think it's a downtick for me with Deontay. He's going to a better team, so maybe more scoring opportunities for whatever touchdowns Derrick Henry doesn't get, but overall, if I'm a Deontay Johnson manager, I'm not particularly thrilled about the move. Let's just say, if he went to Tampa Bay like you suggested, then we'd be having a different discussion. But overall, we'll see how that works out. But it definitely helps the team. The Ravens definitely improved with that acquisition. So interesting there. And then we saw Diggs done for the season, torn ACL. I think we all expected that after the game, but he is done. And Thursday night, man, CJ Stroud, all you got left is Tank Dell. So that's going to be an interesting game. What do you think about that game? Who do you think wins?
I think the Texans will still win this game. I think the Jets are in a deep spiral to the top 5 pick in next year's draft.
Yeah, I feel like that's just a trap. I mean, Texans are 2-point dogs. Obviously it's in New York, but I don't know, man. I'm still undecided on what's going to happen. Would be tonight. The episode is going to be out on Thursday. So tonight, I can't wait to watch the game. We'll see what happens. But hope Tank Dell goes out there and puts up a monster game. We'll see. All right, so let's get into it. Do we have any other news cycles going on that you wanted to talk about? I feel like that was about it.
Yeah, nothing big until the next trade happens, if there is one. So
yeah, trade deadline is November 4th.
It's like November 4th, 5th, one of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be on the lookout and we'll talk to you guys about it when it happens. But either way, let's kick it off. Red light quarterback of the week, Shane. Who are you pumping the brakes on?
I think there's 2 really easy guys to sit this week, and we may be in a agreement on this. First one is Trevor Lawrence at the Eagles. There's just a lot of things I don't like about this. Trevor Lawrence is going to be without possibly 3 of his weapons, so he has no Christian Kirk. He has probably no Brian Thomas Jr. He maybe not going to have Gabe Davis. So that's the big check mark right there. And then this Eagles defense has just been a lot better lately as the year's gone on. I've picked them up the last 2 weeks to start. It's 15 sacks in the last 3 games. They just held Joe Burrow to under 250 yards throwing last week with just 1 touchdown and 1 interception. So I just think there's too much going against Trevor Lawrence and the Jags at Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, when you lose all your weapons like that, it's tough, and you're on the road in Philly, which is a terrible barn to play in for in the NFL. So, yeah, I can get behind that for sure. Stroud or Trevor Lawrence, yeah. All right, well, my red light quarterback is someone I just accidentally Freudian slipped, C.J. Stroud. Playing tonight at New York, and Stroud just doesn't look like the same quarterback without his weapons. Mm-hmm. Last 2 weeks, quarterback 26, quarterback 29. The Jets are giving up the 3rd fewest passing yards to quarterbacks and the 3rd fewest touchdowns in the NFL. I don't like this game for him without Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. I just think you're not going to be happy with the fantasy output from CJ Stroud. Although they might still get the win, I just don't know if it'll be a great game for him. So I'm sitting him. And then I also a couple guys I just want to mention real quick is Kyler Murray versus Chicago. I know he's at home. Chicago's defense is very good. Kyler has been hot and cold. I think this is going to be a cold game for Kyler. And then Baker Mayfield at Kansas City. I would not want to start Kyler, Baker, or CJ Stroud this week. Shane, did you have any others you want to mention?
No, I had Stroud was my other one. It's the weapons and that Jets defense. They haven't allowed a quarterback to score more than 16 points over the last 4 weeks. It's just not a good setup.
Yeah, the best one we saw was Russell Wilson a couple weeks ago, right? Yeah. Russell Wilson had a pretty good game against them, so in prime time. But anyway, that's the red light quarterbacks of the week. Shane, who do you like this week? Who are you subbing in instead of those guys?
So the first guy that I'm going to go with, and it's someone that we have been talking about benching the last 3 weeks, but it's Patrick Mahomes. I liked he had his best game in a long time last week. But more importantly, like this Tampa Bay defense is just horrible. They're giving up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I mean, have you seen the 2 games against Tampa Bay? I think Kirk Cousins threw 9 or 10 touchdowns in 2 games against them and 900 yards or something like that.
Yeah, he torched them.
He's torched them. They're giving up so many points and so many passing yards per game. And I think we see Hopkins worked in a little bit more with more routes and stuff Monday night with more time to learn the system. And so I think this is probably a game where you're going to get that. You'll probably get the over 23-point mark for Mahomes.
Yeah, he was so close to being on my list this week because I agree with you. We saw a completely different Mahomes last week, and he's got a great matchup this week. You have Hopkins kind of coming into the offense and learning the playbook, which is a very complicated playbook, so it's going to take him time to adjust. But, yeah, I love Patrick Mahomes this week. I know just when everyone's counting him out, I feel like he's going to – and he almost had a top 10 week last week. I think he was QB 10. Yeah. He just on the break that I was talking about last week. So, yeah, I love Patrick Mahomes this week. My green light quarterback of the week is Bo Nix. Bo Nix at Baltimore. It's going to be a tough game. Yeah. But with what we've seen from Bo Nix, top 10 quarterback in 3 of the last 4 games. He's coming off his best game yet where he finished as quarterback 2. And he's going to have to throw a lot to stay in this game. Baltimore is just getting absolutely killed in the passing attack. I think they're giving up the most passing yards to quarterbacks and the most passing touchdowns. Like they're just, I think the last 2 weeks we saw Jameis Winston throw for 303 and then Baker Mayfield throw for 373. So they're just, I think with the momentum that Bo is making in the NFL, I think he carries that into this game and has to do a lot with his arm in order to stay in the game. So. I like Bo, and then I also like Kirk Cousins versus Dallas and Sam Darnold versus Indianapolis. I think these 3 guys with Bo Nix, Kirk Cousins, and Sam Darnold, all of which may be on your waiver wire, you don't know, but I think they could fill in nicely for a Stroud, a Kyler, or Baker.
Yeah. And then I've got one other quarterback.
Max, shocker of the week.
spooky shocker of the week, Shane?
Little spooky shocker of the week on Halloween. And I'm going with footsteps Flacco.
Ooh,
getting the start.
Flack?
Joey Flacco named the starter. And also, by the way, a notification that came through when we recorded this that he is going to be the starter going forward. So it's not just a 1 week deal. Going for him. But I just like a couple of things. Like, one, we've seen Joe Flacco be a top 5 quarterback this year earlier, and we saw him be a top flight quarterback last year in Cleveland down the stretch. And we just saw this Vikings defense allow Matthew Stafford to finish as the QB5. And then the third element I like about it is you talked about how you liked Sam Darnold in this matchup. I do too. So I think this leaves the Colts in a game script where they're throwing a lot in the second half, and he's got a great set of weapons to throw to. I just think this is going to be a game where Flacco ends up the week as a top 10 guy.
Yeah, I love this game with Flacco in it. First of all, can we talk about Anthony Richardson? Is he officially a bust? It looks bad right now for him to tap out of that game, and admit that he's too tired. The team doesn't want him as a leader right now. I'm sure they told him hey, you're just going to take the rest of the season to learn a bit about how to operate as a quarterback, and I don't know if it's his conditioning or what, man. I've never seen that ever. So
that's bad.
Tough look for Anthony Richardson. And I can't wait till Coles is back on to talk his shit, because he was spot on with Anthony Richardson. He already got hurt this year, and his accuracy has been absolutely dog shit. So, that was a good call by Coles, and tough look for Anthony Richardson. But I love this game, high scoring game. I think both Sam Darnold and Joey Flack is going to be top 10 guys this week. So. All right, let's move on to red light running back. Shane, who do you think is going to have a bad week this week?
So first guy I'm going with is Rhamondre Stevenson. You're going to look last week. He's he had the 2 touchdowns. He finished the week as, I think a top 15 or top 20 running back, but the rushing yards weren't there. I think he averaged two yards a carry last week. And this defense for Tennessee is still a top 12 run defense this year. They gave up one big long run to Gibbs, but they kind of held Montgomery in check for a lot of that game. I just think this is set up with Drake May not as a quarterback. They're going to struggle to move the ball offensively as well. And then the other running back, this is like the cheat code check mark. If you have a running back that faces the Baltimore Ravens, you bench him. And so Javonte Williams, do not put him in this week. This is the Ravens are first in the league in rushing yards allowed per game. I think they're allowing less than 70 yards rushing per game. We saw a little bit of Jaleel McLaughlin last week for Denver. So Williams, put him on the bench.
Yeah, I completely agree with those two. Javonte, it's a cheat code. Anytime you got a running back playing Baltimore, definitely has some hesitation there. Also, that goes with that cheat code is you have a running back playing Detroit. Don't want to play him. And right now, that's Josh Jacobs. I know this is going to be a tough game, divisional NFC North showdown with the Lions and the Packers. And Jacobs is a top 10 running back this year. And he's coming off a monster game where he scored 2 touchdowns. But Detroit is a really tough team to run against. They're giving up the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game and the 3rd fewest rushing yards. It's really hard to run on them. And Jacobs has had bad games this year. So I'm very worried about Josh Jacobs. And then also, Javonte is a massive sit this week. So I think that's what we got for red light running backs. Let's move over to green light. Shane, who do you like? Who are you pressing the gas on for week 9?
Until he gets hurt and if he's got a decent matchup, I'm going to be I'm green lighting Aaron Jones. In that matchup versus the Colts, they've allowed the 3rd most rushing yards per game. I think it's a game where they're up. They lean on him running wise a little bit more in the second half. So I think that's just a really good setup. And then kind of the other guy I'm going with that you maybe have not been starting, but I would this week, and it's Chase Brown. This is a great matchup against the Raiders. They're giving up, I think, just over 130 yards rushing per game, fourth most rushing touchdowns allowed per game. And Brown's kind of sneakily starting to become more of the first and second down running back on that team. And Zach Moss is becoming more of the third down back. So I think this is a game where Cincinnati's up on the Raiders and Brown gets a little more carries than normal.
I like that. The sneaky play with Chase Brown, and I think you're right. I think he's been coming into his own in this offense, and I think he might be a great start this week. So
yeah,
I like where your head's at with that one. My green light running back of the week is Tony Pollard taking on the New England Patriots. Tony Pollard's RB21 on the season, so he's been in RB2. Last week he saw 20 carries. I think Tajay Spears was out last week. I'm not sure about his health status going into this week, but New England's given up the third most fantasy points per game to running backs and the second most rushing touchdowns. This is a great matchup for Tony Pollard and a get-right game for Tennessee against the Patriots. So I like him. And then obviously I think Javonte Achane against the Buffalo Bills is going to be a smash play. So get Achane in your lineup, who got vultured on a couple touchdowns from Raheem Mostert last week. So I don't think that happens again this week. Love Achane, love Aaron Jones, love Tony Pollard for week 9.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to wide receivers. Shane, who do you not like this week for wide receivers?
I think this is the easiest wide receiver red light call I've had of the year.
Oh, wow.
I think first of all, it's Tank Dell. I mean, yes, he's the solo guy. You're thinking he's going to get a ton of targets, but I just think that means that he's going to see more Sauce Gardner. You mentioned it with how C.J. Stroud has struggled. This is a great pass defense of the Jets that are top 3 in the league of passing yards allowed per game. I just don't like the setup, even though he's down Stephon Diggs. And then secondly, it's Jayden Reed. And like we can look back in weeks 2 and 3 and see what Jayden Reed was with Malik Willis at quarterback. And he was like wide receiver 43 and wide receiver 53, I think. They're just more of a running team that are going to limit the times that Malik Willis throws.
Yeah, is Jordan Love officially out?
It's not official, but I would be shocked if he doesn't. With their bye week coming up, I think they give him an extra week to get that groin fully healed.
Yeah, just such an important game at home, divisional game. He's going to want to be out there. But yeah, either way, Jayden Reed just hasn't been the same wide receiver he started the season as. So, all right, I can get behind that. My red light wide receiver is someone who jumped on the scene last week at a monster game. That's Cedric Tillman. Looks like the wide receiver 1 for the Cleveland Browns. This week, he's taken on the Los Angeles Chargers. Last week, he played one of the best matchups you can have for wide receivers against Baltimore. This week, he's playing one of the worst matchups you can have for wide receivers with the Chargers. They're giving up the third fewest points to wide receivers and the third fewest passing yards to wide receivers. So just overall tough matchup. Can Jameis Winston rally the boys and have a good game? Sure. But I just don't think Cedric Tillman will do enough where you're going to be happy that you started him in fantasy football. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. Matchup is a lot tougher.
Okay, this cat is just all over the place. All right, Shane, did you have any others that you wanted to mention?
No, those are my red lights too.
All right, let's move on to green light. Who do you like this week? Who are you subbing in your lineups?
Well, hey, it's just an easy call. If I'm green lighting Joe Flacco, I'm green lighting Josh Downs. What a huge bump up in value for him with Joe Flacco. I mean, he was a top 20 receiver every game, the 3 games he played with Joe Flacco earlier this year. So it's a great change in quarterback for him. And who is allowing almost, I think it's 37 or 38 fantasy points to wide receivers this year, the worst in the league? It's the Vikings. So it's a smash play for Josh Downs. And second green light guy is I am marrying up with your green light quarterback, and I'm going Courtland Sutton. Like this Ravens defense, you mentioned it, how bad they are. And we just saw it was Cedric Tillman was a top 5 receiver. Elijah Moore was a top 24 wide receiver. And I think Jerry Jeudy had 13 PPR points. So 3 Browns receivers had great games last week. So Sutton got I think it was 11 or 12 targets last week. So I think he has a great game this week.
Shakalaka! Yeah, I completely agree. Those are my two guys this week. Yeah, dude, Sutton, it's his third game this season with double-digit targets. Just a monster game. Yeah, Baltimore's given up the most passing yards, the most touchdowns. Great matchup for Sutton. Great matchup for Josh Downs. I can't wait to see both of them just explode this week. So I love that. Love that. All right, let's move on to tight ends. My favorite topic of the week is always tight ends. Red light tight end Shane. Who do you not like this week in the NFL? Week 9.
So he scored last week, but I still have cause for concern for Dalton Kincaid. I just think a couple things. Like one, Miami's I think they're top 3 in fantasy points allowed to tight ends this year. We saw last week Shakir and Keon Coleman get more involved. And Amari Cooper only had 1 catch last week. I don't think we see a second week where Amari Cooper has only 1 catch. So I'm still looking at I think it's this year that Kincaid's only gone over 8 fantasy points twice this year. So even though he scored last year, I'm still concerned with Kincaid starting.
Yeah, Kincaid's tough, man, because I love Kincaid so much. And I think, historically the Bills play well against the Miami Dolphins. So I'm hoping for a big game. But you're right, there's a lot of factors that played into him scoring a touchdown last week. So definitely has some pause there. Yeah. My red light tight end of the week is Tucker Kraft. He has a touchdown in 4 of the last 5 games. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be, if it's going to be Malik Willis or Jordan Love. Either way, this is just a terrible matchup against Detroit. They're giving up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to tight ends and the 3rd fewest yards. They've only given up 1 touchdown through 8 games of the NFL season to tight ends. So all of those factors into play. I'm very worried about Tucker Kraft, who I have on a couple lineups that I got to sub out this week because I'm just not projecting Tucker Kraft to have a fantasy relevant week this week.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, what about green light tight ends? Who do you want to play instead of Kincaid or instead of Tucker Kraft?
So I've got a very deep sleeper play here this week, and you're gonna look at his line last week. You're like, what the heck are you smoking? And I'm going with Noah Fant. Now listen, I did not like the 4 targets he had last week. I thought it would be more. And probably we get DK Metcalf maybe back this week. But I think if you look at before last week, when DK Metcalf was playing, he had cleared 60 yards receiving in both contests before last week. And then he's get the Rams at home this week, who are bottom 3 in fantasy points allowed to tight ends this year. I just think he could be a sneaky play this week. And then my other real sneaky play is, we're going to talk about it again. It's Taysom Hill. And it's a thing. And just because he's facing the Carolina Panthers. I mean, I think he ran the ball 4 times. He caught a couple passes and he threw a couple passes last week. So that could be a thing.
Oh, I love talking about Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill is fantasy relevant yet again. I like those plays. I think those are good for week 9. My green light tight end of the week is the number 1 target for Baker Mayfield, and that's Cade Otton. Cade Otton coming off of 2 monster games. Last week he had 10 targets, 9 catches, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Big tight end day. And the week prior, 8 for 100 yards. So, the guy is very active in the passing game. Kansas City is a juicy matchup for tight ends. Yeah. They're giving up the 2nd most yards and the 2nd most fantasy points to tight ends. And in order for Baker to do something in this game, he's going to be throwing it to Otton. I don't think Baker has an overall good day, but he can still get the ball to Otton, and this defense allows it. So I am starting Cade Otton this week in week 9.
Yeah, I think Otton and Njoku are probably top 5, 7 tight ends the rest of the year for everyone to play.
Oh, absolutely. So, Cade Otton is a top-tier guy for the rest of the season. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless they trade for a wide receiver, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So. So, all right. Well, they're starting yard work outside my house, and I got my window open, so I'm sure you're going to hear that soon. It's about that time. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video. You guys all have a great Halloween. Go out there and get you some candy. Make sure you give the kids some good candy this year. None of that bullshit, those Smarties and stuff. Give them some Snickers, some Reese's, the good stuff. And everybody have a good week. We will be live Sunday morning at 10 a.m. right here on YouTube and Twitter. Make sure you follow us on all the socials. And overall, buckle up.